this is Matthew Movies coming at you with my review of Garden State, the 2004 indie drama that I think a lot of people love and a lot of people hate. There are some people in the middle, of course, but a lot of people love and a lot of people hate. And I gotta say, I completely understand both points of view because I have had a little bit of a complicated history with this film. Because when this movie first came out, I gotta tell you, right off the hop, I loved it. It totally spoke to me, and at one point I even used to call it my second favorite film of all time, behind Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. It's been my favorite film for a very long time. But I used to call it my second favorite film of all time because it spoke to me so much, and there was all these moments that like I just swelled with emotion every time I watched it. And then I watched it again not too long ago, now that I'm a married man with a job and a wife and a kid and the whole nine, and I gotta tell you, it just really didn't speak to me nearly as much as it used to. I found some of it even to be kind of annoying, and that's interesting. I feel like this movie, to me, is the perfect film for people going through a certain stage in their life. That moment where they feel like they don't know who they are yet, and they're struggling to figure that all out. And to me, once you get past that point, once you kind of are more situated, it's probably not going to work nearly as well for you. Now, don't get me wrong. Even now, I still enjoy it. I still like the film. I actually still have lots of moments in the movie where I kind of swell with emotion. I mean, there's a moment where Natalie Portman's character is dancing in front of a fireplace with Zach Braff's character, and that just totally speaks to me. But there are definitely parts of this movie that I can completely understand why people hate it and why those moments make them hate the film as a whole, because there's enough of them and they're consistent enough that could totally irk you. Now, speaking about this film, Zach Braff, of course, is the person behind it. He wrote it, he directed it, he put the music together, and I feel like one of the major strengths of this movie definitely is its music. I mean, it's very fitting for the tone of the movie, but I feel like still it's fantastic. My wife has the CD of it, and I could still listen to it to this day. It's got some great tunes on it, some that I don't love that much, but I feel like overall the music is fantastic. I think his performance as the main character, it really is what this movie hinges on entirely. I think the way that it fails and the way it succeeds all really lie in his court, because the way he plays the character in this really kind of quirky manner, and this really, but it also kind of grounded in a way where like he's the guy who's reacting to everything around him, but he also is very numb to everything. And it's interesting for sure because he created this kind of fantastical world in a way, and then grounded himself while all these other characters are kind of around him. So I feel like he is the window into this film, and he's also the only character that I feel like, well, not the only character, but he's the main character that I find is most relatable. And I feel like that would probably be the case for both men and women that are going through this kind of this crisis of identity, and I feel like that's one of the major strengths of this movie. I will also say that I love Natalie Portman in this movie. She definitely is playing the manic pixie girl or whatever that whole thing is. She's like, it's a ridiculous character. Like, there's a moment where she's like, I'm gonna do some dance that nobody's ever done before, and it's just so intentionally obviously supposed to be like, I'm super quirky, look at me. And then like when they're going around where she's got the helmet on, I mean, it's very on the nose, but there's also several moments of her character that I feel are very relatable and make you really empathize with her, where she's being much more human. Like I mentioned before, the dancing in front of the fireplace. There's a moment at the end of the movie where she feels kind of heartbroken. There's discussions in the, like, not discussions, sorry, but there's her when she's dancing in the pool and she's bemused by Zach Braff's inability to get in the pool. I mean, there's multiple moments in this movie where she's embarrassed because they're showing old footage of her character, not Natalie Portman. But you know, I feel like she does a very good job of being both really ridiculously quirky and then also relatable, which I feel like is an impressive feat. But one of the major things that this movie is based around is the relationship of those two characters, and I feel like it's pretty well set up. You can really tell why he likes her, and you can tell why she likes him, because you can really feel that like she feels ostracized by a lot of people, and the way that he looks at her is different than what most people do, and I feel like that makes it so their relationship is one that you can really kind of just invest in and care about by the end of the movie, which for me is the biggest strength of this movie by far, is the way in which I invested in their relationship, and by the end that I really wanted things to work out for them, and that whole thing I thought was very powerfully done, and really felt organic with, you know, some unnecessary quirk in there from time to time. Then you have Peter Sarsgaard in here, which, I mean, the guy is just one of the best actors going, in my personal opinion. I mean, I've loved him in so many movies, but I'll say I don't necessarily love him in this movie. Even when I used to think this was my second favorite movie of all time, I still never really cared that much for his character. I mean, it's interesting the way he's written, because he's kind of there's a juxtaposition between him and Natalie Portman and Zach Braff's character, in the fact that he is much more of like, you know, kind of like an everyday kind of dude. He definitely has some is living a weird life, because everybody in this movie is, but he seems like somebody, if you walked down the street and you saw him, you wouldn't think anything of his behavior, whereas that's definitely not the case with the other people. But I think he does a solid job performing the character, but I find the character to be pretty uninteresting. For those of you who don't remember, Jim Parsons is in this movie, and I think he's one of the best examples of the unnecessary quirk, where he's just, they set him up where he's you know, a medieval knight from whatever that restaurant is where they go fight medieval times, I think it is, and he spends the entire scene he's in all dressed up in armor, and it's just unnecessary and stupid. And then they you know, they go to, after they see him just walking around in the suit, they have this kind of conversation where they're looking back on their lives, and the fact that he's there in that suit, I think, just kind of gets rid of the point of the sequence to a large degree. It's just unnecessary quirk that's there. I think he does a good job in the movie, but I feel like that element was completely unnecessary. And really, at the end of the day, I feel like there's definitely a lot of quirk in this movie that, in certain points, is interesting, and then in other parts takes away from the film. I mean, there's a moment where Zach Braff is standing in front of a room wearing a shirt that's the exact same pattern as the wallpaper behind them, and it's an interesting visual, but what is the point of that sequence? I mean, I know what they were going for, where basically he kind of feels like he's fading into the background, and he's kind of melding back into this world that he left all those years ago. So even though there's part of him that fits there with the shirt, you know, just completely fading in the background, there's also his head is just completely stuck out, and he's completely different than everybody else around him. You know, you could read many things into that moment, but really, from the storytelling point of view, it's unnecessary. There was nothing in that moment that really was so telling that it had to be there, and it's just so, like I said, unnecessarily quirky that for me it takes away from the film. And there's the whole moment where they're yelling into the abyss, and I get what they're going for, but sometimes it's very on the nose too. Like that moment, I feel like was, I just, like I said, for me, it feels very on the nose. I don't think it added to the story. I think they could have told that in a much more subtle way that would have been much more interesting. So those are my thoughts on this film. I enjoy it a lot to this day. I still consider it to be one of my favorite films. Not, well, I wouldn't even necessarily go that far, but it's a film I really, really enjoy, but I can't abide some of the silliness of it. So those are my thoughts. Let me know in the comment section below what you think, if you're a fan, if you hate it, whatever. Other than that, please hit that like button, hit that share button. It makes it much more likely that other people will come check out this video and let me know what they think, which would be absolutely awesome, because I love talking films with people. And other than that, if you're new here or you just haven't done it yet, please hit subscribe, hit that notification bell. That way you can find out when I put a new video, and you can let me know what you think. Other than that, have yourself a good day.